guys. Welcome back to the Disciplined Life Podcast, the place where we talk all about power differential relationships and domestic discipline. My name is Arya, and this is my husband, Coda.
Hello, everyone. We're back.
And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the use of rewards and positive reinforcement within your relationship.
This sounds like a fun one.
It should be.
Not that the others haven't been fun, but this is always a fun one.
It's like the last few episodes, we've been talking a lot about punishment, and I think that that's because punishments are a big part of a lot of people's dynamics, but and punishments really do help reinforce your dynamic. But on the flip side of that, positive reinforcement can be equally as important in supporting your dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're good, you get a quarter. No.
And I think it's important to make the positive reinforcements something that can be sustainable for your relationship.
Yeah, again, this goes back to I feel like we say this every podcast, but I think it's important for us to say, and that is that you've got to do everything with this idea of what is going to be beneficial to your relationship. And in terms of rewards and those kinds of things, I think you have to think about what's going to motivate your partner into doing the right thing, because obviously that's what they're there for. That's kind of the motivation.
Right.
Behind.
So punishments offer a negative consequence as a motivation, but rewards and positive reinforcements offer a motivation towards good behavior for positive outcomes.
Exactly.
And we are always talking just about from our personal experience, and with the hopes that looking at how our dynamic works can maybe help you with structuring your own dynamic. So really, what is a positive reinforcement? What is a reward?
So are you asking for a definition here, or should we?
Yes, I'm asking for a broad definition, not a specific example.
Okay. I would say then that the rewards in a domestic discipline relationship are incentives for your partner to accomplish the goals that you have set forth, or to obey the parameters that you have put. That would be my definition.
Yeah, that's a good definition. I think that it is something that is above and beyond the normal things, right? So, for instance, and this can become really tricky because you're not talking about a parent-child relationship. You're talking about two adults in a relationship. And so it can be kind of tricky to have these rewards based on, rule following or outcomes that make sense, that also don't become this arbitrary system. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And so it can be kind of tricky to set up rewards that don't undermine the adult autonomy of your partner.
And goals that make sense.
Absolutely.
That's what because I'm sure there's some goals out there. I don't think we have any, but I'm sure there's some goals out there that people have in a relationship that you kind of go, okay, how does that work?
Right. So. And I mean, but that's not really for us to judge, because whatever makes sense for their relationship and whatever the priority for their relationship is, that's what it is.
Well,
right?
No, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, try to make the goals in such a way that, as we were just saying, that are going to really motivate, because if the goals are too way out there, that might not be a good motivator.
And when you say goals, you're talking about the positive.
Yeah, sorry, the positive rewards.
Okay, because I was like, you threw me off for a minute, because I'm like,
sorry.
well, goals of a relationship?
No. The to emphasize what you were trying to
Okay.
get done and the rewards that go along with that.
Right. I mean, because we use the app Obedience, and in the app, we can tag on points onto tasks.
Right.
So as tasks get done, they points are accumulated.
Right.
And so we have set certain rewards at certain point values. And these are kind of like an exchange system. So if I have a reward set at like 25 points and a reward set at 50, I get to that 25 points, I trade it in for that 25-point reward. Then my points go down to 0. It doesn't keep accumulating.
Accumulating, right.
So it's like you earn the points, you can spend the points. So if you want a higher reward, you kind of have to wait it out and earn the higher point
The
value.
higher points, right.
But I mean, it would be pretty ridiculous for us, if I put on like, oh, for, 2,000 points, I get to go on a cruise. That's pretty ridiculous because, first of all,
I think that's what I was trying to say earlier.
And that's why I'm using this example to kind of reiterate what you were saying.
I just wanted to interject there before you made that point. That's what I was trying to say earlier. I wasn't trying to judge anybody for their.
Right, but for us, that would be pretty ridiculous because, number one, we don't have the financial ability for me to earn that reward.
Not right now, at least.
And second, I would have to do the math, but I think I could get to if I didn't spend any points on any other rewards, I think I could probably get to 2,000 in like 6 months. And
that's probably true. That's probably
and
very
so
accurate.
I'm like, that is not a realistic reward for us. As amazing as that sounds, that's just not something in the cards for us right now, in that capacity.
Right.
But some of my rewards are, and I think that it's good to keep them simple. And we also have some like lower value rewards and some higher value rewards. So,
which is good too. Again, that kind of goes along with the tier system a little bit.
Right.
And so this hopefully might be helpful to people to let them, obviously we'll talk about that, but just kind of tier the reward system a little bit.
Right. And so like I have some rewards that are 25 points, and I can have one of those basically every other day if I wanted to.
If you want. Yeah, I was going to say you don't have to, but you can.
And then I have some rewards that are like 50 points that I could have once a week.
Right.
I have some rewards that are a couple hundred points that would probably be doable with it, once a month.
Right.
And we also have to think about our, ability to make those happen. So if you're not in a financial ability to do certain things, you have to like think about things that make sense.
Right.
So for me, as a stay-at-home wife, as a stay-at-home mom, I am not in a professional setting. And so one of my rewards is going and getting my nails professionally done, because that's not something that I do in my day-to-day life.
Right.
As it is. That's one of my higher rewards. But if you have a wife who is working professionally and she gets her nails done regularly as part of just her professional appearance and upkeep for work, that's not going to be a reward. That's something that she just has to do as part of her, regular hygiene routine.
Right.
So really think about things that feel special, that feel like a reward, things that you can work towards, that'll motivate her to work towards those goals and really follow through. Because your only motivation cannot be the absence of punishment.
Really? Come on.
I mean, that's a good motivation, but it can't be the only motivation, because then it just starts to feel like...
No, I'm being facetious.
Oh, I know you are. Oh, I know you are.
That's what. But people have come to expect that on this podcast. But no, is this is definitely, what you're saying is very, very important, because it's just like anything in life. If you only have negative consequences for everything, and it's never reinforced, like your positive behavior is never reinforced. Like we see this with animals. right? We see
Right.
this with dogs, and not to say that you treat your spouse like a dog or an animal, but the principle is the same. You know, if all you ever do is you emphasize, well, you better not do this bad thing or you're going to get this, but there's no positive reinforcement, there's no thank yous given, there's no rewards given, then it's hard for that person to be motivated to want to do the right thing.
And I was just going to say things that I feel like should be positive reinforcements that are given without having to quote unquote earn it in the same capacity as like the things that we've set out in the app
Right.
is the thank yous,
Uh
is
huh.
the good jobs, is the, you know, I don't know, like acknowledgement, like just those
Right.
little daily acknowledgments that like you really tried hard today. I really appreciate that. You've done really well.
You're welcome. No.
But you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
those sorts of daily interactions, like that's such an easy way to really develop and emphasize
Yeah.
your dynamic.
And and I think this helps build your relationship
Oh yeah.
because this really helps not only the rules to be followed, which is what you want to do, but that's not the ultimate goal. But it's to help your relationship, and so this really can bring you closer, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I think that in our dynamic and in many dynamics, one of the main areas of responsibility that I have is doing a lot of service tasks for our
Right.
family and for our
Right.
home. And without that acknowledgement, without that, you know, way to say, like, oh, you're doing so well. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you following these rules and following these tasks. And without that acknowledgement, it's very easy to start to feel like my service is just a commodity.
Right.
And you don't want your spouse to feel like a commodity within the relationship. You want to build the relationship first
Yeah.
and then incorporate the dynamic.
Right. Right.
Because the dynamic alone is not a sustainable relationship model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and then because and one of the things that we have seen with, I don't think this happened with us, but we've heard stories and seen is when you don't have some of those things in place, like couples and spouses start to resent each other a little bit. There's some resentment that starts to build. There's some hostility that starts to build. All those kind of things
I
because you're not
mean,
being acknowledged for what you're doing right.
I think that we can see that playing out in some of the conversations that are present on social media
Sure.
where, you know, typically very feminist women will talk about, you know, men being this way or that way, and it's coming from a place of hurt.
Yeah.
um it's not a it's not a good projection to put out there.
Sure.
It's not a accurate depiction, but it definitely comes from not feeling valued.
Sure. Yeah.
And so you want to make sure that when you set up your relationship in a way that emphasizes these more traditional values, these more traditional gender roles, you really want to emphasize everyone feeling valued for their contribution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what these positive reinforcements and these rewards allow you as a husband to say, you are doing well, and I see the work you're doing, and I want to acknowledge that.
Right.
So that your wife will feel valued and feel acknowledged and want to continue doing the behavior that got her
Right.
that
Right.
acknowledgement.
Exactly. That's the positive reinforcement we're talking about.
And so it's good to have those daily reinforcements. It's good to have those points to be able to say, well done. But it's also good to have some bigger goals in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And And then in light of getting to those bigger goals, bigger rewards.
Right. And so, like, for us, some of like the small things is, I'm trying to think what my 25 point, I think
Isn't
that,
that like ice cream?
yeah, like going out and getting an ice cream. We have a local ice cream shop that, like, an
Well,
ice,
you're an ice cream lover
I
too.
love ice
You love
cream,
ice cream.
but
Even there's sometimes where I'm like, you want ice cream and it's cold outside, but you said it's never too cold for ice cream.
never. Um, of course, we don't live in the north either, so there is that.
That is a good point.
But so we have a local ice cream shop that I think it's like $1.50 for an ice cream cone. And it's
It's
one
not
of,
very expensive at all.
yeah, it's one of those things that it's just this little treat to say, like, I've done a really good job for the last, 3 or 4 days. And it's just a little way to kind of go out and do something just for myself.
Exactly.
Um, I think that I'll probably petition to add some more smaller rewards. But I think a good like 50.1 would be going out for coffee.
If you petition for it, it has to go through the House and the Senate first. You have to vote on it.
But like going out for coffee.
Or I was going to say,
Um,
you're a coffee person.
Yep. And
Iced coffee, which I do not understand.
or just little things like that where it's like it's under $10-15.
It's not a big expense.
It's not a
No.
big expense. Now, you have to decide if that fits into your
You still got a budget for
budget.
that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Um, but just think about those little things. Like, I know that one of my rewards is just going out for an afternoon.
Yeah.
I think it's built in that if I hit that reward, I think it's 100 points that I get to have like a $20 budget just to spend
correct.
on, shopping. So if that's Target or if that's, Ross, or if that's just going to the mall and walking around, and if I see something small, being able to get it for myself.
Yeah.
Um Within reason, and that's why we kind of set that $20 budget around there.
You're not a very expensive person, though, in general, which
I'm
I appreciate.
not.
So it's not like you're looking in and, I need that $1,000 whatever.
No,
So,
but it could also be going out to lunch on my own. Um,
which
and
people might find weird, but you and I like to do that.
I do, and part of that is because, like, and I say alone, you can make it to where it's like you get a date night.
Right.
We tend to view date night as just
Something we do.
I
That's
was about to say,
that's kind of totally outside this.
it's just something we do within our relationship. But
Yeah.
if you wanted to have like a special date night, if you're like, hey, we're going to go to like your favorite restaurant that we
Right.
don't get to go to very,
Very
often,
often.
that can be a reward.
Yeah.
But I like going out by myself. I like having the solace of just kind of having that time away
Having
from
a
the
meal
house.
by yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And so that is why that makes sense for me. Um, you know, if it fits into your budget, having a weekend away, a weekend trip away,
Yep.
could be
You might want to put that in a higher tier, but
Oh yeah,
you don't have to.
That would definitely, for us, that would definitely be
Because
something
if it's in your
that would
budget
be.
to have a cruise, then maybe that goes in the higher tier rather than this one. I don't know. Just depends.
I was about to say we typically don't travel a lot, but
No, we like stay vacations.
we do staycations, is what they
Sorry,
call them.
staycations. Just because when since we're kind of a family of introverts, a little bit, we almost need a vacation after the vacation. So if we take one, we make sure we have a week to recuperate afterwards.
Yeah, we tend to try to take trips where it's very low key, but
I'm getting off on a tangent. Sorry, that was yeah.
and so just think about those things that are just little things that, if you that fit into your budget that also feel special, because
And that you feel like fits that tier system. Like, don't put something in tier 2 that really, again, you could be in more of a tier 3 reward, and don't put something that should be in tier 2 and tier 1.
Right.
Because just think about those things before you put them in there. I mean, that was another thing that we did was think about,
Oh yeah,
do the
because
rewards fit with what tier you're in?
oh yeah, because going out and getting a coffee is way different than spending, 2 to 3 hours walking around a
Right.
shopping
Or
center.
going to a nice fancy restaurant.
Right. And I would say walking around Target for 3 hours with like no uh, time restraint and going out to a fancy dinner, the fancy dinner is more
Right. Right.
of a, you know, more of a reward than just going out to Target. So you really have to like think about those things and just, but also don't withhold things that are just part of your relationship and part of
Right.
the benefits of being in an adult
Yeah,
relationship.
don't put things that are rewards that should just be part of your relationship, because that'll start to build up the resentment and hostility really fast.
Right. I don't have to earn every single date we have.
What? No. So true. No, it's very true.
And also, I go to Target when I'm running errands. The difference
Right.
between a trip to Target for running errands and a trip to Target as a reward is the like when I'm running errands, I'm not leisurely looking around.
You're
And
buying things for the household
right.
too.
And when I'm going there as a reward, I do not take a list.
Right. You don't have a time constraint
I don't have a
necessarily.
time constraint. And I
Right.
purposefully don't think about things that it's like, oh, I need to pick this up and this up and this up. I can make another errand trip.
Exactly.
This trip is just for me to enjoy looking around.
Yeah, right. This is part of the reward is taking time looking around.
And if we lived in a city, like our city doesn't have a zoo, I don't think we have an aquarium.
No.
Um,
Heard talks about it, but
but if we lived in a city where we had like a nice zoo or a nice aquarium or
we
a
need a zoo.
nice,
We need both of those here.
yeah,
Maybe in all due time.
if we had a nice like museum, that would be a reward for me just to be able to
Right. Go
go
there.
and leisurely look around, actually read the little, information plaques or whatever. Um, to go to those spaces like without the kids, without, you know,
When she says
um,
the kid, she means me and our daughter. No.
well, you know what I mean.
No. Yeah.
Without a group, just to be able to, if I want to sit and watch the penguins for an hour, I can.
Yeah, you can.
You
Right.
know, just little things like that. To have that as a reward would be great.
Sure.
Um,
Because, again, that can make a lot of difference.
right. And so just little things like that that seem mundane really can build a positive view of the dynamic for both of you.
And again, I want to emphasize, like, these are rewards that either you suggested or we talked about. So it wasn't like I just randomly said, "Hey, I think she would like these," and I just put those in there because I wanted them to be rewards that you were motivated to get. Even if I thought, "Oh man, these are great. She'll be motivated to get them." If I hadn't asked you or you hadn't suggested some of them, I don't know if you would have been motivated.
Well, and to be completely honest, I had to come to you and say, hey, I would like to incorporate some rewards.
Yeah. Right. Because
Because
I really hadn't thought of that,
I
to
was
be
about to say,
honest.
you just didn't think of it because we had tried a rewards only system without the punishment side and it
Yes. Yeah.
didn't work.
Didn't work.
And so I think in your head, you were like, well, punishments are working. We don't need this other aspect. And I was like, no, it would be really nice for me to, because,
Well, again, we had talked about, what I had mentioned earlier about, you didn't say it exactly in these words, but we had talked about in detail about, hey, just having that fear of punishment is not motivating enough. And I think it would help to have these rewards because then I would be even more motivated to do the right things.
right. And so I think, like many women, I have a tendency to put myself last. And so for me to be able to say, no, I earned this time, I've earned this treat, I've earned this reward, and I get to enjoy it without guilt, without shame, without feeling like I'm taking something from someone else in the family.
Right.
That has been so enriching for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes such a long way that I don't think many men really understand how nice it is to have your husband come to you and just say, "You've earned this and I want you to have it."
No, and I don't. I honestly, because I can tell you, I didn't really understand till we had had that conversation, and also until you had cashed in on some of your rewards. I'm like, oh wow, okay, this is actually not only working for her, but it's really important for her to
Right.
have that positive reinforcement.
And, you know, we've just set up our rewards to where it doesn't undermine our relationship, it doesn't undermine our goals. Um, but it just really supports my motivation towards those goals. It supports my motivation towards, following your lead.
Right. Right.
And it just gives me just that little bit of acknowledgement to just say, well done.
Yeah. I think I've said well done before to you for that.
Sounds so British. Well done.
Well done.
It's not typically a phrase we hear in America a whole lot.
No, no. Well, golly, that's a whole nother podcast for a different type of podcast.
What
The issues we have in America right now.
Oh, I was going to say the cultural differences between America and the UK.
No, the issues we have in America right now.
Yeah, let's not
No, we're not going to start
rabbit
that.
hole
That's not why
there.
they're here. Yeah, we're not going there.
So I don't know where to go from here. Like,
I was going to say, I think we kind of covered it
I was about to say, this
a
is a
little bit.
really short podcast this time.
Compared to our other ones. I think we still got it about a half an hour here.
Yeah, I
So,
was going to say we
but
typically.
but we typically go about 45, 50 minutes.
Right,
Probably.
so-
But, as always, I would say, give us some comments about, um, this particular podcast. Maybe you want to share with us some of the rewards that you all do. Or send us a question if there's something that we didn't cover that maybe we missed in this that you want to know. We might turn it into a part 2 of the podcast or address it later. But
Yeah, absolutely.
we're always open to the questions and comments. So those of you probably listening on YouTube, thank you for listening. Don't forget about our Patreon page.
I was going to say, if you are on YouTube, down in the description box, I will have listed our Instagram handles, our Patreon link to our Patreon page, and our email address.
So those
So
are all the
please-
ways to find us and get in touch with us.
Patreon, you can get early access to these podcast episodes as well as Patreon exclusive podcasts and some written posts and different things like that.
And by the time they hear this podcast, we should have a Patreon exclusive
We do,
podcast on there by the time they hear this. So if you want that, we would really appreciate your support. And our tiers, I think, are pretty reasonable. So we don't want to put anybody in the poorhouse, but if you can afford it, we'd really appreciate the support, and you can get that special podcast.
Early access starts at $3, and if you want the Patreon exclusive podcast and the written material that I put up, that's only $5 a month.
Yeah,
So.
hey, that's cheaper than going and getting a cup of coffee at one of your local places. You know which one I'm talking about. One of your local coffee places. So, well, do you think we recovered the rewards and everything pretty thoroughly?
I feel like we did.
I'm trying to rack my brain as we're giving all of the PR stuff, and I think we did pretty good.
I think we did. I think just the final takeaway is don't neglect this aspect of your relationship
Very
and
important.
your dynamic. It really goes a long way to just support the successes
Yeah.
that you can get. And you know, really just build your, like for the men out there, build your wife up by acknowledging her efforts.
Yes.
Because I can say, as someone who stays home, takes care of the kids, takes care of the house, I don't get that external validation from anyone else except my husband. And
And
so,
sometimes I'm bad about remembering that, I will say. And so you got to keep that in mind.
you have to think, if you have if you have like the traditional gender roles, traditional um, workload division where she stays home and you're at work, um, you have to remember, you go to work and you get that validation at work.
Yeah.
You get that validation from coworkers, from colleagues, from clients, if you have clients in your line of work. Um, she's not getting that from anywhere.
Right.
And so you
Yeah.
really have to think about, when you come home, you are, quote unquote, her boss. And so you need to be the one not only saying, hey, this didn't get done right and we need to address that. We need to talk about that. We need to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But also to say, wow, you really excelled in this area and I just want to acknowledge you for that.
And I'm getting better in that area for all of the husbands out there. It's a work in progress. I'm getting better because sometimes we just forget, or we give that, oh, you did a great job, and we didn't go even an extra mile that we could have to say thank you in a good way. So um, I I feel like that this is the reward system has helped in that, because it's another way that I can acknowledge what my wife does and say, I'm so glad we get to do a reward and not a punishment. I like doing that better.
I'm sure you do. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think punishment is a fun aspect of the relationship for either party.
No, I would like to think not. So, okay, so we covered YouTube, Patreon, all that good stuff. So I guess we could say goodbye till next time.
I was about to say, we'll see you guys. Thanks for joining in.